Chapter 15, the evolution of microbial life. So those are the microbes. So a little bit here at the very beginning of the chapter looks at the association of microbes and humans. Your body contains at least 10 trillion cells. The number's higher if you're a big person, 6'5". It's lower if you're a smaller person, more petite. But you have trillions of individual cells in your body. However, the microorganisms that are residing in your body, your mouth, and nasal passages, digestive tract, a lot of them there, and on the surface of your body, outnumber your own cells approximately 10 to 1. Right? So if you are someone who has about 10 trillion cells in your body, in and on your body, you have close to 100 trillion cells that are microorganisms, mostly bacteria. And they've been on your body ever since birth, and they've been associated with humans and other animals for a very long time, over evolutionary time, so much so that most scientists believe that disrupting our microbial communities, that means the set of microbes and different species that live in and on our bodies, especially in our bodies, increases, so up arrow, right, increases our susceptibility to diseases and leads to us being unhealthy and getting sick. Also predisposes us to certain cancers and even contributes to conditions like asthma and allergies and other conditions. So our association with our microbial colonies is actually very important. So let's get into some of the major evolutionary episodes in the history of life on Earth. So Earth was formed about 4.6 billion years ago. So that's the BYA. Earth is very old. And the prokaryotes, if you remember, those are the single-celled organisms that are somewhat simple, no nucleus, right? The simple chromosome, and they only exist as single-celled organisms. They evolved about 3.6 billion years ago. So they've been around for a very long time, but it took the Earth about 1 billion years for the appearance of life to occur. Prokaryotes, through photosynthesis, began producing oxygen as a byproduct of photosynthesis about 2.7 billion years ago. Okay? And that was the evolution of the autotrophic prokaryotes. So autotrophic refers to self-feeding. Trophic or troph refers to feeding or eating or how you get nutrients. So it took quite a while before the evolution of the photosynthetic ability of these prokaryotes. But that was a very important step in Earth's history, because once photosynthesis is possible, then oxygen production increases, and these early photosynthetic organisms started to literally change the atmospheric conditions on planet Earth by increasing the oxygen levels. And as we'll see, that allowed multi-celled organisms to appear once atmospheric oxygen levels increased. So the prokaryotes lived alone on planet Earth for about 1.7 billion years. And they're still around, and they're in great abundance everywhere we look for life. Okay? So they're simple, single-celled, no nucleus, but they're very old, and they are very successful and have always been very successful. If we look at this figure from your textbook, major episodes in the history of life on Earth, comparing it to a trip from Kamloops, Canada, and doing a cross-country trip, reaching Seattle, San Francisco, San Diego, Phoenix, Oklahoma City, St. Louis, Terre Haute, Indiana, Erie, and Buffalo, and Albany, New York, and then finally reaching Boston. That hypothetical trip of 4,600 miles, comparing that to Earth's history, where each mile is going to be a million years, Earth is about 4.6 billion years old. So at the beginning of our trip, Earth forms. Okay? And notice, oldest known rocks form 750 miles into the trip, 750 million years. And it took a long time for the prokaryotes to appear, 3.5 billion years ago. Okay? And I don't know why it says MYA here. Excuse me. Oh, because it's 1,000. Gotcha. 3.5 thousand million years ago is the same as 3.5 billion years ago. Okay? And we don't get atmospheric oxygen concentrations increasing until about 2.7 billion years ago. And notice the eukaryotes don't appear until 2.6 to 8 billion years ago, about halfway through the journey. Things are pretty boring in a way, right? Only single-celled organisms. But with the advent of increasing oxygen concentration, the first multicellular organisms can appear roughly 1.2 billion years ago, right? As we're getting closer to our theoretical destination of Boston, meaning today. In Earth's history, large complex multicellular organisms about 0.6 billion years ago. Life doesn't colonize land until 500 million years ago, half a billion years ago. It's a long time ago, but compared to Earth history, that's fairly recent. Mid-Mesozoic era, as we'll talk about, 180 million years ago. Homo sapiens don't show up until 195,000 years ago. And then boom, today. Okay, so continuing with our major episodes, the eukaryotes composed of one or more cells. So there's many single-celled eukaryotes and many multicellular eukaryotes. Because we are eukaryotes, animals, have nuclei and other membrane-bound organelles. If you remember when we talked about cells, all that fun stuff in there, rough, smooth ER, Golgi apparatus, mitochondria, chloroplasts, those are all the membrane-bound organelles, which eukaryotes have. So eukaryotes, first of all, from an ancestral prokaryotic host organism, cell, single-celled, that was able to engulf smaller prokaryotes that could use the increasing atmospheric oxygen to efficiently do cellular respiration. That ancestral heterotrophic, meaning other feeding organism, evolved into the mitochondria. And then another type of ancestral prokaryotic organism that was photosynthetic or autotrophic was engulfed and became symbiotically associated with the host cell, and those became chloroplasts, which are now, over evolutionary time and development, those become organelles within now a eukaryotic cell. And then once this was possible, photosynthesis and cellular respiration, efficient harnessing of energy to produce ATP from oxygen, now that sets the stage for the development of multicellular eukaryotes from the ancestral unicellular eukaryotes. Okay, that endo symbiotic theory that we talked about a while ago. Okay. So multicellular eukaryotes appeared about 1.2 billion years ago. And then, in a way, things get more interesting on planet Earth, because things get big. So the Cambrian Explosion refers to the fairly rapid appearance of evolutionary appearance of all the major major animal body plans, especially something called bilateral symmetry. In other words, things have a left and a right. And all the major animal groups appeared during the Cambrian Explosion, a period of rapid animal evolution. By about 500 million years ago, plants, fungi, and insects first colonized land. So the first animals on land were insects, and they appeared once there was enough plant life so that the insects had something to eat in addition to eating each other. And by the way, that's a ancestral dragonfly. So the first organisms to fly on Earth were insects. And then later, the reptiles, the dinosaurs, the flying dinosaurs, and then later birds, and then things like bats, which are actually mammals. So by the end of the Mesozoic era, about 65 million years ago, which is also the ending of the Cretaceous period. Sorry, where's my cursor? There we go. The flowering plants appear. Birds and mammals begin to dominate the landscape. So at that momentous time when that asteroid or meteor hit the Yucatan Peninsula and wiped out the dinosaurs, one remnant group of the dinosaurs evolved into the birds. The mammals, which were around at that time, were able to evolve into many more groups and become the dominant terrestrial and aquatic animals on Earth. And then with further development of an evolution of insects, that helped flowering plants evolve, and the flowering plants, their evolution helped insects become common. So there's a close association with flowering plants and insects. You've heard of pollinators, right? Most of those pollinators are insects. And pollination is of flowering plants. So then the origin of modern humans, Homo sapiens, 195,000 years ago sounds like a long time ago. And in our lifespans it is, but it's actually a very recent event in Earth history. Humans are newbies on the planet. Of course, we have a huge impact on the planet. All you have to do is, Google the news and you'll find out that the humans often have a negative impact on our planet. So let's get to the origins of life on planet Earth. So when the Earth first formed, about 4.6 billion years ago, it was a very inhospitable place. Not even solid land was around at the very beginning. So over the first several 100 million years of Earth's existence, conditions were extremely harsh, and it's doubtful that life could have originated or survived during this early Earth history. The Earth of about 4 billion years ago, BYOA, was very turbulent, right? Water vapor had condensed into oceans on the cooling planet, so that took a while. Volcanic eruptions spewed out carbon dioxide, methane, which are greenhouse gases, ammonia, and other nitrogen-containing compounds. So ammonia has nitrogen into the atmosphere. And as we see, this kind of sets up the situation for the beginning steps leading towards life. So life, it's an emergent property arising from specific arrangement and interactions of many molecules, the macromolecules, like carbohydrates, proteins, amino acids, those sorts of things. So to explore how life could have originated on the early Earth history and during the early Earth environmental conditions from non-living substances, biologists and scientists, they examine research from many fields of chemistry, geology, physics, in addition to chemistry and biochemistry, to try to get a glimpse at how life started and how the biological molecules were first formed. So there is a four-stage hypothesis for the origin of life. So a hypothesis for this origin, the first organisms were products of chemical evolution that followed 4 stages of development. Okay, so these chemical 4 stages of development had to occur in sequence in order for the first forms of life to appear. So the first stage is the synthesis or the production of small organic molecules like amino acids and the nucleotide monomers. Remember, these are the building blocks of proteins and amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, and the nucleotides are the building blocks of the nucleic acids like DNA. Okay. We'll continue.